Hey guys, welcome back to another video from Deep Shift Labs. My name is Krishna and I want to teach you Python. Okay, so in this video, we are going to be looking at the array. Now the array is a crucial concept in Python, allows us to do a lot of different magic tricks. An array is basically a list. It's like a shopping list for programmers. And it looks something like this. So let's create an array called R. And then what we have to do is we first have to use square brackets, just like that. And then we can make a list of any variable type within it. So this could be strings, so apples. And then we could have bananas. And remember, they're separated by commas just like that. And then we have oranges. And this can go on for millions and millions of elements. So, but strings are not the only thing we can do. No. In fact, we can do any variable type previously discussed in the variable set lesson. So go check that out if you haven't watched that yet. Any variable type can be used. We could use 1, 2, we could use floats, so 1.3, 4.1, 4.3, something like that. We could use booleans, so it should be like true, and then false. The array can be composed of any variable type you desire. It can even be composed of functions. So we could actually, and don't worry if the syntax doesn't make sense to you, the next video is going to be about functions. But if you have a function defined as func1, something like that, and if you had something like this, you could actually put func1 as an element in the array, and this could work. And let me change that spelling. Yes. So this is a valid array. And what you have noticed is you can also mix and match different variable types. Let me get this out of here. You can actually put integers and then suddenly bring up a string, and then you could put a boolean in there, and you can mix and match these however your heart desires. And so now that we understand how to make an array, let's look at some things we could do with an array. So let's start with a blank array. So this is what we call instantiation, is where we make the variable but not assign it to anything. And then we can basically append elements to it. So append means to add. So what we could do is let's first print the array actually, just to see what it looks like, just to make sure Python got it right. And then let's do array.append, and I forgot the spelling. Append, something like that. And then we could append a value to it. So let's append the value 18. Oops. And then let us once again print the array. And let's run what happens and see what happens. So as you can see, the first time we printed, which is this statement right here, it's blank, which makes sense because we started our array blank. And then we append a value to it, so we add a value to it, and it becomes 18. So can you guess what happens if we do another one of these append statements, something over here? And let's append YouTube, the text. And let's run it. So if you, as of right now, are thinking that it's somehow going to try adding 18 and the string YouTube together, do you think that's going to happen, or do you think it's going to be 18, comma, YouTube? Well, let's find out. And the second answer was correct. It's going to be 18, comma, and then the string YouTube. And you can append as many of these as you want, as many data types as you want. But what good is an array if we can't actually access the data in the array? So the next thing I want to show you is how you can access value from the array. So in this we use a concept called indexing. Indexing basically has to do with assigning each value, so each value right here in the array, with an ID. So the way Python and all other programming languages, most of them at least, how they work is you start with the first element being 0. So the ID of 18 is 0. The ID of YouTube is 1. And if we add another element, the ID of that would be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, on and on and on. And we can access it pretty easily. So let's print, and then we have our array. But instead of printing out the entire array like we've been doing for the past few examples, let's get the first element. So remember, as I said, the first element will be assigned an ID of 0. So there we are. And let's run this. And voila! We just took the first element from the array and printed it out. Look at how powerful this is. With just a few lines of code, we were able to do so much. And then, again, let's access the second element, which is, again, 1. And then let's run it. And sure enough, we get the string back, which is YouTube. Now, I know this might be confusing on why 1 would be the second element and 0 would be the first element, but that's how most programming languages do it. So the good way of thinking about it is if you want the second element, you do second element minus 1, so you need to put an index of 1. And that's why, in the previous video, we explained why for loops have the first part of the range being inclusive and the last part being exclusive. So go check out that video if you don't know what I'm talking about. So, now that we are able to access values in the array, let's look at some other things we could do with the array. So let's get rid of all this code and let's make a very simple array for us to use. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that. And what if we want to know the length of the array? So how many elements the array has? Well, that's very easy to do in Python. All we have to do is type len. So don't type out the whole thing, just len. Remember, it is a function. And each function returns a value. And we're going to go more into depth on returns in the next part of this video. The next part of the series. And then we put in an array. Just like that. And let's run it. And voila, 6. And just to double check, we can count, just to make sure Python can count. It's very important. And indeed, there are 6 elements in the array. Alright, and there are a lot of different things we can do. And one of the most powerful features Python has is the feature of directly iterating over an array. Let me show you what I mean. So let's type in a for loop, just like we did in last time's video. So for loop, let's set a as our variable, the variable we just instantiated, right? And for a in, now remember in last video we did range, but in this video we're going to do something different. We're just going to type R. And I know this is getting pretty tricky for you to understand, so let me break this down. Basically what we're saying to Python is, I want you to iterate over all the values in the array until you have no values left. So, the first time this for loop runs, the array portion is going to return 1, which is going to get assigned to this value. Then, when the loop runs the next time, it's going to take the next element and set a equal to that. And it's going to run again, and then it's going to take the third element and set a equal to that. And this keeps on going on and on and on until the array has no more values left, in which case it's just going to exit. So let's actually see that in action. Let's print out a, and let's run it. And as you can see, it was actually printing all the values in the array. But this isn't too convincing. So actually, what we can do is we can change these to strings. So A, B, C, and E is plenty. And now, if we run it again, what do you think will happen? Is it still going to print out numbers like we saw in the while loop and for loop video? Or are we going to see letters? Put your answer down in the description, down in the comment section below. And then, unpause the video and let's see the results. So, and sure enough, we do actually get letters. That is because it's assigning A, whatever the value from the array is, whatever value is returned from the array. So since remember the array is going to return the first value first, it's going to set a equal to that. So in the previous video, I did mention how a is going to be an integer in that case. No, it doesn't always have to be an integer. It's just whatever is being iterated over. And Python is quite flexible with how that even works. So, for example, if we set this to an integer, just like that, and run it, look at that. Python automatically figured out that, oh, we're changing the type from string to integer, and I should change everything else accordingly, and adjust it to that. And this was the end of our arrays video. In the next video, we're going to be talking about functions and all the different magic tricks you can do in Python with functions. So stay tuned for that. If you missed the other videos, we're going to make a playlist, so go check that playlist out if you want to completely learn Python from ground zero. I am Krishna from Deep Shift Labs, and until the next video, bye.